My Journey to America, a Kurdish-American story with author Newzad Brifki.
Thank you. I want to thank the Ann Arbor District Library and Syra and the tech team for hosting this event, this book signing event. So who am I? My name is Newzad Brifki. I am a Kurdish-American from Moorhead, Minnesota. My name means new beginning. The Kurds are a people that consist of over 40 million people without their own country called Kurdistan. Kurds were divided amongst parts of southern Turkey, northern Iraq, eastern Syria, and western Iran. After World War I, they were promised a homeland after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, but were betrayed by the world powers at that time, Russia, United Kingdom, and France. Many Kurds practice the religion of Islam. However, there are other religions amongst them, such as Christianity, Judaism, Kaqai, and Yazidi. The Kurdish people are an Indo-European people, which their culture and language separates them from Arabs, Turks, and Persians in the Middle East. Technology has helped the Kurdish struggle these days. Scholars, activists, and the Kurdish diaspora have educated many in the world in the unfair treatment and limited rights by the countries of Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran towards their Kurdish population. I am the youngest of 6 siblings. I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers. I am married and have 3 children, Pavan, Lauren, and Parwar. What led me to write this book was because of the political climax we were facing during the 2016 elections. I wanted unification for our people here and to show my gratitude for this country for giving my family and I a safe haven full of opportunities. I was telling my story but wanted to expand my audience and believed it was the right moment that was needed for our country. The countries of Iraq, Iran, Turkey, and Syria have been oppressing the Kurdish people for almost a century. In Syria, Kurds were not allowed citizenship and could not leave the country. In Turkey, Kurds were prevented from taking public office and even speaking their language. In Iraq, oil revenues were not shared, and the Kurdish towns and cities were Arabized. In Iran, the youth are hanged daily to put fear into the Kurdish resistance. Saddam Hussein became the dictator of Iraq in 1979, claiming himself as president. His agenda was similar to Hitler's, wanting to control Europe as he wanted to control the Middle East. Saddam wanted to crush anyone that did not follow him. After decades of fighting the Kurds in northern Iraq, the Peshmerga, Kurdish freedom fighters, resisted his offense. Saddam decided to go all out on the Kurdish people in northern Iraq, especially fighting a decade war with Iran, blaming the Kurds for his lost battles. He used chemical gas on us, where the Kurdish resistance died. Kurds are protectors of their land by being fierce warriors, but there was no way to fight chemical gas. The only way for the Kurds to survive was to leave. Halabja, a Kurdish city, was hit the hardest, which borders Iran. Over 5,000 people lost their lives within minutes. The casualties were all civilians. Millions of Kurds became refugees. We became refugees in Turkey. Life was hard. Camping is fun for a couple of days, but not 4 years, surrounded by Turkish soldiers. We had no running water, no electricity, and necessities of every day were a treasure, like bread, for example. I didn't have a normal childhood from age 3 to 7. We used to play in the mud and used one pair of socks that we had to roll up to make a soccer ball. There were no toys, nor a playground. We received an education, but not in a normal school setting. The education given were in beat-up tents with no desks and the tents were over 4 years old. We came to the gateway of immigrants in Ellis Island. I took a real shower with shampoo and soap. It was a long shower, and I did not want it to end. I saw the Statue of Liberty for the first time, but did not know what it was or what it stood for. My family and I spent about a week there until we departed to where our sponsors were in Fargo, North Dakota. We arrived in Fargo. It was cold and snow covered everything, lots of it. I got a culture shock. People were talking to me in a language that sounded like Chinese. It was fast, and everything they said I would repeat back to them. Hi, hi. How are you? How are you? What's your name? What's your name? I got to ride in a car which I had done only once before. There were so many cars that I hadn't seen before. I didn't know what to do in my neighborhood. When I attended elementary school in second grade, I made friends fast, even though we could not communicate very well. I had 3 best friends, Matt, Dan, and Mike. Matt and Dan's parents treated me like I was their child. They cared for me. I slept over. They took me fishing, to church, paid for sports activities, and bought me things my mom could not afford. I even went to restaurants with them and had the first hamburger of my life at McDonald's. I felt welcomed, and slowly my childhood was becoming normal. Growing up in the States was tough, though. My family moved around quite a bit. My mother didn't speak the language, didn't drive, and never had an education because of constant war. This made it difficult for us as children, but we had to be closer to other Kurdish community families where they could help us when needed. We ended up in some rough neighborhoods where crime and gangs were high. I was exposed to bad things. My family was poor, and we faced poverty. School years were fun during elementary school. After 5th grade, it became tough. I hated going to school sometimes because I didn't have what the other kids had. Trying to blend in with other kids and avoiding fights was very hard for me. I hung out with some bad kids, and they exposed me to make wrong choices in my school years. In high school, I was facing too much and wanted to hide from reality. This led me to make bad choices, having the wrong friends, and not focusing on my education. After high school, though, I changed. I decided that since I was not going to see my high school friends again, that I could choose a new path and make good choices. I started volunteering with many nonprofit organizations in the community I resided. I registered for college. I received an Associate of Science degree, then a bachelor's in business, got married, started a family. Since I had nonprofit work experience, I founded the Kurdish Community of America, where it would be a resource center for the community. I got my MBA in 2014, ran for office as city council candidate in Moorhead. My success is thanks to this country. I was welcomed and given a second chance in life to start in a country full of opportunities. I learned from my mistakes and became a better person. I received my education, which helped me to live a good life out of poverty. Continuing to learn after my degrees is how I founded success. I train my mind daily by reading. I treat my body right by exercise and diet, except this is an exception, coming to Michigan. I have money because I invest in greater return later. These are a few things that I have done to become in a better position than I was. To me, it's all about the right choices we make. Yes, I lost my father when I was 1 year old. Yes, I was kicked out of my homeland. Yes, I became a refugee as a child. Yes, I lived in poverty. Yes, I went through some bad experiences in life. Yes, I was discriminated against. Yes, we are not perfect. All these experiences made me who I am today, a better person. I used the bad and turned it into good. Life has ups and downs. It's about moving forward and learning as we go. I am blessed to be a part of this country. I have much gratitude for the American people and the United States of America. We are a nation of many nations. We must protect our Constitution at all times and at all costs. We must be united at all times, despite our political climax. We are United States of America and not a third world country. We live in a democracy that allows us to have a discussion and differences without killing each other. That is what separates us from other countries and what makes us great. We must uphold to our faith of being good to our neighbor. We must continue to defend and stand with those people and nations that are being oppressed by regimes and tyrants. The future of the United States is bright. We don't need to make America great again because it already is and is only getting better. My future is in politics, and I am currently running for mayor of Moorhead. I will open it up for discussions, and we can have a chat if you guys have any questions.
What happened with your brothers and sisters?
So my oldest brother came before us. He came in 91, and then we followed him about 6 to 8 months later, coming in 92. And then my two sisters and a brother came along after that, except one sister was already married, Daulat. She had to stay because it was considered a different family. But they are all residing with me in Moorhead, Minnesota, except for Daulat, which is still in Kurdistan region of Iraq.
Do you have any sense of how getting here now is different from when you came? I mean, the process that you and your family and your brother first, what it's like now, and if you were in that same situation.
Having my nonprofit organizations, I was able to work with many newcomers especially after Operation Iraqi Freedom, where some Iraqi families were given refugee status and special immigrant visa status working with the U.S. military. So where they would face future threats, U.S. gave them resettlement, and they came here. And going through that process through social service agencies was different because before we had sponsors. We had families that took us in, showed us how things worked. We felt more welcome. Now it's like 8 to 5 work case jobs. They take you to Social Security office, get you a card, look for jobs for you, between those hours. But, that extra time and welcoming is not there from what I see it. And of course, because of the political nature we are in, September 11th, recent terrorist organizations has made it very difficult for refugees to resettle in the States, especially with the new administration. I mean, in a way, it is understandable, but it also makes it difficult for those families who really need to resettle and start a new life because it just won't work out for them in the Middle East.
Can you speak a little bit to the current Kurdish autonomous region in northern Iraq? Is there a connection between the Kurdish community here and there? Is there any repatriation that is occurring back to that area?
So during Operation Iraqi Freedom, many Kurds went to help the U.S. government as translators, interpreters, guides, and that made it very easy and for the U.S. military. And when it came to safety, of course, you had the Kurds, they were U.S. citizens, and they were able to bring family members on their teams during missions and civilian affairs or whatever you want to, whatever the missions were. And this helped out. To every Kurd, one day they dream of their own free homeland. just like, the Jews of the world dreamed of Israel, and it happened. Every Kurd wants Kurdistan to happen because they have family, they have friends, and a lot of them were born there, and it's their motherland, and they are still being oppressed till today, which is sad. Iraq, in Iraq, it's a failed state. You have Shiites, you have Sunnis, you have Kurds. They're never going to get along with each other. And Turkey, the only reason Turkey is still oppressing the Kurds so much because they're part of NATO, and they know they can get away with a lot of things. Iran is a big country. It's a regime, and it's going to take a lot of support from the outside to help Kurds in that area, in Iran. And in Syria, Kurds have autonomy, but no one's giving them full support. Kurds took a lot of area in Syria, their area from ISIS. They destroyed ISIS in Syria. But what did Turks do? Turks bombed them and took a couple of cities that were under their control. So most of that area now is, they're just limited. So the Kurds here, they try to help out as much as they can, but, like myself, for example, I'm Kurdish-American. This is my country, and, I live here now. So whatever I have to do for this country because I'm here, because this is my home, that I have to do that first, and then, whatever I can do that's legal to help the Kurds, it'll be done.
Looking back over the decades, going back to the time post-World War II and Eisenhower, my recollection is that the Kurds have been repeatedly double-crossed by the West, specifically by America and probably by Great Britain, in terms of, you mentioned how the Kurds assisted in this last Iraqi war, but there have been periodic over the generations where the Kurds were enlisted to help facilitate some kind of aim for the West, only to be betrayed later on. And I can think of specifically during the reign of Nixon here and Saddam, the Kurds were led to believe that the U.S. would back them up, only to find out that the U.S. did not, and Saddam perpetrated a lot of atrocities against the Kurds. What I'm bewildered by is the Kurds' repeated openness to looking to America in the face of these multiple betrayals. I've always wondered, Kurds are good people. You're aware of what I'm?
Yes.
Okay. What makes the Kurdish people as a whole not become cynical about U.S. aid? Because it's been a pattern, a cycle of, you're our friend, we'll be there for you, and then betrayal. Perhaps this last time there's been repeated betrayals, there was some amount of coming through for the Kurds, but there's, in terms of setting up a separate, a nation, splitting up Iraq, the U.S. Was against that, and so I'm just wondering what's the Kurdish psychology about that.
There's many ways of looking at it, but the number one thing that you must remember is Kurds have a saying: "We have no friends but the mountains." But there's a little hope and chance that United States won't forget them and will open up their eyes and realize that other than Israel, you have the Kurds in the Middle East that is very pro-American and that is very loyal to America, and that needs America for Kurdistan to become autonomous in all four countries. And thanks to the first Gulf War, there was a no-fly zone, and Kurds have America to thank, for that. And they were able to get their own parliament and raise their flag and make their military. But the only thing that they share with Iraq is the currency. Otherwise, you go into Kurdistan region of Iraq, it's totally different. It's, it's developed. It's still part of Iraq, which makes it a sad situation. But you can look at the rest of Iraq and look at Kurdistan. You know which area is more prosperous and which area has gained the most benefit after Operation Iraqi Freedom, and who believes in democracy for all. No matter what religion or race you are, there's Kurds of different, and different ethnic groups in Kurdistan all living side by side with each other, peacefully. But U.S. has a lot of interest in the Middle East, and I think that U.S. will realize one day that they made a lot of mistakes not supporting Kurds 100%. But till that day, Kurds just have to continue to be loyal. They have to continue to have faith and just just defend their territory and believe in peace. If there's a solution for dialogue, it's better to talk and not lose lives, because war is devastating for all sides. Nobody wants war, but if it comes to it, Kurds need the right weapons to defend themselves. And at this moment, they were fighting AK-47s, fighting ISIS, which was a small terrorist group that emerged into like a force of a country. But they still took them down. And then when they asked for autonomy last year in 2017, that was squashed by the Iranian Shia militias and Iraqi forces, and no one went to the rescue. They were using all sorts of modern weapons, and Kurds who had AK-47s and, old Soviet weapons. So it's hard. You ask for a country when you don't have the weapons to protect yourself, and it's hard. So they just have to continue and just have hope. It's all about hope and just building relationships with the good guys. I believe because U.S. is a superpower in the world, and it has defended many oppressed people and has taken down a lot of regimes and tyrants and dictators, that the Kurdish people have hope that U.S. will hopefully support them 100% and give them what they're asking for, which is a free Kurdistan.
Why is the United States, in your opinion, the only hope? Yes, it's a superpower, but why is the United States a superpower? And how has it gone about, being exceptional in the way the United States has? So I was just wondering, given this more global perspective about supporting democracies or not, what your view is on, and maybe how your view has transformed over the years since your childhood, fleeing from Kurdistan, from Saddam Hussein, who was brutally repressive, really oppressed Shias in the region, did all kinds of brutality. So I was wondering if you'd speak to that, please.
United States is not perfect. I'm not saying it's a perfect country. It does things that is in its best interest first before it does anything else. But looking at the United States, like I said, throughout history, it's a democratic nation compared to other superpowers, like, let's say, Russia. You can't trust Russia because they're a country that makes weapons, and they live off of making weapons, which weapons kills people, and it's a regime. So United States is a democracy, and that's why, there's hope for that, in my opinion. And like I said in the beginning, I think a lot of people realize that U.S. is a country where a lot of a lot of their expatriates have gone to start a new beginning, to start a new life because of conflicts and stuff. So coming back and hopefully in the future and fixing problems is a lot of people look at that. In my opinion, I might be wrong, but that's just how I see it. But compared to other countries, U.S. is a democracy, you know, when you have China, when you have Russia, and when you have the USA as superpowers or United Kingdom, you know, it's because of the British, where a lot of countries are messed up because of colonization, to be honest with you, because they just went, France and Britain, and just, you know, drew lines and made countries, which was wrong, because you had minority groups and different ethnic groups trapped into countries and where you know, they faced oppression, like the Kurds and, you know, Jews and a lot of minority religions and races.
So this is a slightly lighter question. Have you had a chance to go back to Ellis Island as a tourist? I know it's a bit further away from Minnesota than your average vacation, but
I'm waiting for a book signing event.
fair enough.
I have not. I've been close by, but I haven't had the chance to go yet. But yeah, that's something to put on my calendar for the future.
So how many Kurds are in the United States, and are there other large groups of expatriate Kurds in other countries, and how do you find them to maintain culture and relationships and all the rest of that?
There's approximately 50,000 Kurds in the United States of America, the biggest population being in Nashville, Tennessee. And the reason is, no, they're not all country music stars. But I'm pretty sure they listen to the music country. And then you have large population in San Diego and Dallas, Texas. There's quite a few families in Fargo-Moorhead area, approximately 1,100 or so. And then you have folks in Virginia, Fairfax area, by DC area. You know, they're spread out, but the Kurdish diaspora, you know, because of conflicts with these countries, there are many millions of Kurds outside of Kurdistan. And from what I've been told and did some research, I think there's close to 1 million in Germany, if I'm not mistaken. And most of those Kurds are from Kurdistan region of Turkey.
Do you know if they have oil in Kurdistan? Which, I mean, what would be the boundaries of Kurdistan if you had your wish to have your country? Is there oil? I had two questions. Is there oil there? And who's profiting from the oil, if there is? And is there any hero currently there, somebody that you know of or that they talk about as somebody that's a leader or a potential leader of the people?
So oil, last year when the Kurds were going to secede from Iraq and become autonomous, fully autonomous, where they declared independence, they took over Kirkuk, which is a Kurdish city. It has the 4th largest oil reserve in the world. So they would have been all right if they would have sustained and kept Kirkuk, but that didn't happen. A hero, which is a sad situation right now, is his name is Masoud Barzani. He used to be the president of the Kurdistan region of Iraq, and he started with the Kurdish struggle after his father passed away actually in Rochester, Minnesota. His father came to the States for heart treatment and died there. But Masoud started being a Peshmerga, Kurdish freedom fighter, at the age of 16. And people believed in him and thought he would be the first Kurdish president. But he resigned because of tensions, you know, from outside powers and from conflict within the Kurdish parties within Kurdistan region of Iraq. He just said, you know, enough is enough, and I'll be a civilian and a Peshmerga just like I was in the past. So But, you know, all Kurdish people are heroes because they are very strong people. And they love their homeland. They love peace and you know, they just want a country. They just want a land to call Kurdistan of their own. Because they are not Turks, they're not Arabs, and they're not Persians. They're their own race, and they have a beautiful culture and beautiful language, and they're no different than those ethnic groups that I've mentioned. So, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, and that's what makes Kurds different, because like in Iraq, you know, they're so secular to a certain religion, you know, they're so strict and conservative that they only have one, and other religions are no good, or they're not going to go to heaven, or getting along with your neighbor, you know, is not good. So that's what makes Kurds so awesome, because and so great is because they don't really care about what religion you are. And in the Middle East, which, you know, all we hear is Islam doing this bad, Islam doing that bad. You know, you have all different religion groups side by side living in Kurdistan, and just like the United States, it's freedom of religion, and the people, you know, live in Kurdistan and just want to be free, and that's what separates them, you know, from other ethnic groups, which have an extreme mentality, and Kurds are pro-Western and act like the West, which is, you don't see that in the Middle East.
I have another question.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit about growing up in the United States and what school was like? A little. I know you touched on it a little bit in your presentation, but is there any like specific memory that really sticks out to you from elementary or high school? And can you just talk a little bit about that anecdotally?
You know, in my discussion, elementary was fun. You know, when I was in elementary, because we had recess, you know, we'd play with different kids, and right after school, you just, you know, you probably end up at their house, you know. So that's what I would do after school when it was in elementary, and I really enjoyed it. It was not much to think about being in a different group, or, you know, wearing some name brand clothing, which I faced, you know, after like 5th, 6th grade. Started seeing name brand clothing, different groups of kids hanging out, you know. So I was like, okay, I had to be a popular kid. What should I do? Hanging out with this crowd or that crowd? So it was difficult, and especially, you know, being of a different culture, and sometimes having the accent, because, you know, we'd go home and there was no English. There was just Kurdish. You know, we tried speaking English, but my mom didn't understand a thing. You know, she just talked back to us in Kurdish. So we still had that accent, and so it was kind of difficult growing up. You know, when I got into middle school, you know, bullying started happen, and it even got worse. And then in high school, started hanging out with the wrong crowd. Even though, you know, I was an active kid. I hung out with all different types of kids, and, you know, but I still, because of what I went through and from what I was dealing with, I chose to hang out with the wrong crowd, and that was kind of a struggle because I was not getting it. I was just thinking life was just whatever. And then when reality hit me, I'm like, oh my God, you know, high school's done. I'm not gonna see those friends anymore. I think it's time to face reality and make some changes and see what good I can bring to the world. And, you know, I'm sick of not being like all the rest of the people. I used to drive by different houses and be like, oh my God, you know, I live in a housing project. How am I ever gonna afford a house, you know? Man, those people are so lucky, or, you know, look at those nice cars. But until I got my head straight and really understood life and all the opportunities in this country, I took advantage of that, and I got what I asked for. Buy my house and got a nice job and had money in the bank and in my pocket all the time, and life was good. So it was a learning process. I mean, sometimes it's, we have a Kurdish saying, you don't become better unless you make mistakes. And I'm not saying I should have made those mistakes, but it made me a better person because I learned from that, because I didn't repeat those mistakes.
Who lives in Moorhead, Minnesota? Are there other refugee groups or immigrants there? And it's a foreign country to us.
Yes.
Here. So how did you fit in? How did you on the council and all the rest?
Yeah. So Moorhead, Minnesota borders Fargo, North Dakota, and that's where our sponsors were. So our sponsors were in Fargo. We lived there from '92 to '95 and moved across the river into Minnesota. To Moorhead in 1995, and I've been there ever since. And I guess at that time they had better services for families, and they helped out more. And most of the Kurds moved away from that area, from Fargo. They moved to different states, to California and Tennessee, and so a lot of them moved to Moorhead, and my family just followed them. Like I said, my mom needed that support network from the community. And so, yeah, that's why we ended up in Moorhead. Right. Oh, you're talking about the Scandinavians? Yeah. Well, you betcha. They feed us good lutefisk, and no, all jokes to aside, it's home. We've been there for a long time, and going somewhere else feels foreign, like here. It's like, oh man, I mean, I got a nice hotel. I'm staying at a nice hotel, but still, home is home, no matter where it is. It feels good. So, despite the cold weather and being a small area, I think Michigan is a great state. Ann Arbor, it's got lots of things going for it, and me running personally for council was just an experience in 2013 because I wasn't as serious as I should have been. That's probably why I lost. But now I think running for mayor, I'm more prepared, and I have knowledge of the city. I mean, I'm Moorhead's Newzad Brifki, and I know the issues and what improvements need to be done to make it a better city. And hopefully, actually not hopefully, but it did. This journey here opened up my eyes to many possibilities and projects for the future of Moorhead, such as this beautiful library.
I was wondering if you could speak to the process that you went through to learn English. What were some of the ups and downs, and were there certain words that, especially slang, that threw you for a loop, so to speak?
It was English. It was so tough. I mean, I still struggle with English because the grammar, and sometimes when I talk, I'll get like a tongue twist because I can speak Kurdish fluently as well. And growing up, I mean, I'm glad that I started off small, coming here at a young age, compared to a lot of people who are older. They come here and they have a really, huge accent, and English is very tough for them. But I was able to go through, starting from second grade. That helped me out a lot. But like I said, it was a fast language. I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to learn this language. How am I supposed to learn? But the teachers, the education system in Minnesota and North Dakota is just fantastic. They work with you. I mean, it's a small area, so they really struggle with kids to make sure that they're getting it. And, they had ESL, English as a second language. It used to be called, now it's called, I believe, ELL, English, something like that. They have those programs. And the kids in my neighborhood, the Horace Mann neighborhood in Fargo, North Dakota, I mean, they would say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G, and I would just, I would repeat after them, and they would teach me words, and I would say them, and hanging out with them helped me out a lot too, you know, being around them, and they were speaking English all the time, so that helps. And like I said, I'm very glad and happy and thank God that I came here at an early age, because I went through the American education system, which prepared me for what I am doing now. Yes, but they always respond back to me in English. So they understand Kurdish, but for some reason they won't talk. The only time that they'll talk Kurdish is to their grandma, my mother. So, and they're not that fluent, but they try.
Speaking of your children, hope it's not too personal, but your parenting, are you just letting them be, or are you inculcating them with Kurdish food and culture, or how are you balancing that or approaching it?
Well, when my brother served with the U.S. military during Operation Iraqi Freedom, I went there to visit him, and I met my wife there, and I was able to bring her here. So she brought that 100% culture with her, cooking home, you know, cooking Kurdish food. But my kids, it's hard for them to eat Kurdish food. I love it, but you know, they got to have their pizza and hamburgers and fries, and you know, the junk food. I mean, they love it. So it's hard, you know, to be conservative with your children. I mean, I try to tell them do this and that, or this is how I want you to be, but you know, growing up without a father, you know, it's like maybe I shouldn't be too bad, you know, and let some things slide. But I try to give them what they want and what they ask for, but I think there's a limitation to how far things can go, and having those Kurdish traditions and culture is important, because it is very easy to lose yourself in this country and forget for all the benefits and assets and things that we have, and knowing what I went through, and you know what, you know, her grandparents went through, and coming here and starting a new life and having all these things and having that culture. I think my kids will appreciate this country better, and they'll have lots of gratitude and thanks for the things that they receive every day.
I'm wondering, I don't know very much about the Kurdish culture, but how would you compare the role of women and their freedoms in the Kurdish culture as compared to the average Arabic country?
Mm-hmm. The Kurds are, when it comes to women, it's no different than here. But you know, because it's the Middle East, there's some traditions that they must follow, because they have outside people coming in to the area, you know. So the women have every right. They drive, they get an education, they work, but to play a role as a man in the Middle East is not, you know, it's easy said but not done. We can talk about equality all we want, but it's, you know, it's not 100% like the United States, that's for sure. Other Western countries where it's not taboo for a woman to play men's roles, but over there, you know, Kurdish women have rights. I mean, they hold up arms and fight terrorists, these bad guys, you know, which, I mean, they're in the front lines. And look at Syria, that's what they're doing in Kurdistan region of Iraq. But still, I think it's coming from the family of you know, what should I do that's not going to be offensive to my family, is kind of out of respect. But women have freedom. It's no different than the United States, especially I would say all three areas except Iran. Iran is probably very strict because of their Islamic laws that, you know, the women have to cover up and things like that.
Thank you very much for coming. If you want to say any final words, that's
Sure.
great. Just don't forget there is the book outside for signing. So go ahead, Newzad.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming, and I hope that you enjoy my book if you get a copy, and God bless all of you. Thank you again.
This program was recorded on September 10th, 2018 at the Ann Arbor District Library.